title of the video is accurate. It's not for you if you're like, dude, because I get it. If you're like, dude, stop with the God of War Kratos thing. We've heard it. We know your point. Let's talk. I get it. It's about other stuff. But I've had so many people coming at me about it regarding this one specific thing that I'm getting better at not responding. But this one I had to respond to. It's the people that come at me and talk about the evolution of the character and say things like, the character grows. That's what characters do. It's plot development or character development. It would be boring if the character stayed the same and all this shit, right? Okay, I want to be clear, first of all. And then they kind of layer on top of that this sense that I'm like, which again, they can think that I don't care, but it speaks the heart of it, which is as if I don't know, as if I don't understand the value of character development. It shouldn't matter my bona fides that I was, and I don't even know my work in games, that I'm very well read. How many books have most of these fuckers read? I mean, there's my little Charlie Brown tree. Those are just the books I've read in the last 6 weeks. I'm reading this book now. I kept from college, where I was a literature English major, this fucking thing, which is just filled with English literature, but it's just got some of my favorite poems of all time, and I just don't want to get rid of it, right? I half these people, probably more, if you said, hey, what's your favorite poem, written before, that wasn't Dr. Seuss, they'd be, oh, well, what do you mean, a poem? So don't fucking, I mean, you can, but when you come at me regarding this as if I'm some kind of knuckle-dragging mouth breather who doesn't understand how a story is written or formed, I tend to want to respond to that. But it's almost like they are so defensive and so protective. And on one hand, I appreciate that, right? I appreciate, when I was a lot younger, like in high school and junior high, I understand that intellectual properties really function as stand-ins for things that might be missing in your life, and you build your identity around this shit, and so you become protective of it. It's unhealthy, and it's best to get over that as soon as you can, but I understand it. And I'm sure some of that is that, because Kratos, whether it's the old one or the new one, the teams have always done a wonderful job building these amazing games that people fall in love with, and I think that's great. People saying, oh, Jaffe's just jealous. Just go back and watch my 2018 God of War review. I love that game. So that's really not it at all. For me, it's the reason I'm still even talking about it is I wish I could communicate better. Maybe I'm just shitty at communicating. Of course, if you're talking about a novel or a long-form television series, not always with that, the kind of storytelling these people are talking about, yeah, I would agree. You want to have, some meaningful arcs happening. You want to have a character starting in one location emotionally, and over the course of the narrative, we want them to grow and change, and ideally those changes reflect things that we, not necessarily consciously, but we can bring into our lives about their lessons learned and apply them to our lives. I took a writing class once where the teacher said the best fiction are basically how-to manuals. It's great stories and adventures and all that shit, but ultimately what you're left with is wisdom that you can apply to your day-to-day life, even if the story was set, in the Lord of the Rings universe. So I get it, but I wasn't talking about that kind of story. I was saying that when we started God of War, it was designed to be a character like Wolverine or a character like, what was the other one I was referencing? Wolverine or maybe Hulk, but let's just take Wolverine, right? Because that locks in pretty good. There are characters that aren't built and aren't meant to have a level of depth that would fit into like a great book of the year novel or even just a good TV series that's very long form. Kratos was designed to be kind of a superhero, not in terms of his ethics, but in terms of like how superheroes work. Superman has changed, but he's still Superman over almost 100 years. Same with Spider-Man, frankly. I don't mean Miles and then it was this. I mean just Peter Parker Spider-Man. Same with Wolverine, right? Same with James Bond. Same with Indiana Jones. And these are beloved characters other than Indy because of some weird thing Harrison Ford doesn't want anybody to ever play the character even when he's dead. These are characters that are beloved, that have been viable and successful and lucrative and for decades. And I'm not saying that there's something fundamentally wrong with going, we're going to take a character like Wolverine and suddenly we're going to make him much more human in the sense that he really does change and he's no longer angry and he's no longer violent. That stuff's still there, but now he's this and that and the other. I understand, but that's not what I like about Kratos, and that's not what he was designed to be. Thank you, Marquise Watson. And it doesn't mean you're wrong for liking the shift. That's wonderful. That's great. The franchise certainly needed something, and that's one of the ways to go about it. But where you're wrong, though, is making the assumption that one size fits all. And when you're making mainstream entertainment, the idea that one size or one way of doing commercial blockbuster big tent IP, usually you don't want to change too much the fundamentals of the essence of the IP. That's what I was communicating. I was not saying, I don't understand why the character got to change. What you mean? What's your character arc? What's your character development? I know. That wasn't the point. I was actually dealing with something a little bit more nuanced as it comes to the creative process as it relates to marketing and franchising and things like that. And so I did want to make that very, very clear for those who are still watching, because I get it. Especially, I don't want to be one of these younger generation hater guys, because I'm not, but there's such a striking difference. It's like you hate it or you love it. There's no in between with a lot of these younger folks on the internet. It's like, it's got to be this or that. And I'm like, my take on 2018 was I loved it because it was great, wonderfully written. It was very fresh, very meta, very novel. But Ragnarok, all I said was, besides the pacing issues, Ragnarok, because those tricks had already been played in 2018, then you were left, or frankly, Eric and the team was left to deal with this character who, outside of the meta, and isn't that interesting? We've reevaluated the character, and in doing so, that in and of itself is a creative idea. They didn't have any of those rabbits to pull out of the hat, so they were left with the character just as a character. And all I'm saying is, to me, the character of Kratos as he stands at the end of Ragnarok, although I haven't finished Valhalla, I do kind of like him better there, is, I think, a poor character. I don't think he's compelling. I don't think he's viable to run a franchise. And you can say, well, look how much money it makes. And yes, it does. It makes a lot of money right now. I am curious if that tone continues with the next God of War, the next mainline God of War. I wonder if you'll start seeing diminishing returns, because the act of changing was the wow factor of 2018. But who he changed into, I do not think is a compelling character. That was one of the things I was saying. So anyway, I really am going to try to stop talking about it. I want to have this that I can point people to and say, look, it's okay if you want to think I'm a dummy. It's okay if you want to think after hearing this I'm still a dummy. That's your right. I support it. But I really had been seeing enough people really misunderstanding what I was saying, to the point of going, yeah, fellas, I know what character development is. I know the value of it. That I was worried I hadn't been very clear. And so that's what this is. Be well. Hope you had a great holiday. I'm going to go stream some games in about an hour, but I'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.